Hello and welcome back to the Dog Lady Podcast. We are at episode number 4. And today I want to tell you about my dog, Rufus. And in fact, while we're chatting today, you might end up hearing him. I hope not, but it could happen. He is, my 5th or 6th or 7th English Bulldog. I've had him for a bit over a year. He came to me as a rescue. He's another spina bifida dog. I've been rescuing bulldogs with spina bifida for lots of years now. And when he arrived, he was just the cutest puppy ever. He's a tri-merle, so he's got that really unique coloring. And everything seemed absolutely normal, other than the fact, of course, that he was born with spina bifida. But that's not the dog that I see now. Rufus has pretty severe anxiety, the most severe I have ever seen, and I've been around my fair share of dogs. He's on Prozac. He has been for almost a year now, I would say. Actually, probably about 9 months. And I love him 100% completely. But to understand Rufus, you have to understand what anxiety actually looks like in a dog, because it's not always what you might expect. It's not always dramatic. It's not always cowering or hiding, though it definitely can be. With Rufus, it's many different things, but I rearranged my plants, just moved them around the room. Now, I do have a lot of plants. And Rufus climbed up on the couch next to me, and he sat there and stared at them for the longest time, just stared at them. The plants he had seen every single day were suddenly in a different position. And that was enough. It was something that needed monitoring. A new bag by the door, a steam cleaner, a person at the fence means excessive eating of grass. A chair moved 2 feet to the left or to the right. Anything unfamiliar entering his environment. My landlord yesterday dropped off a hose, which is sitting out in our front yard. So it's been there since yesterday afternoon. And each time he goes out the door, he inches his way up to sniff at the hose. Now, most dogs with inanimate objects don't really struggle. For Rufus, any change is really hard. And because his nervous system is at a threshold that's much higher than most, a loud car goes by, and 10 minutes later, he is still scanning, looking around, too stressed to actually take a treat from my hand. And car rides, getting him in is fine. He will always willingly go in, but the car ride itself, that's the issue. I've tried everything from a car seat, no car seat, front seat, back seat down, seat up, windows down. But I've tried extra medication by adding in tramadol if we were going to go for a ride on that day. And so far, nothing has actually made a difference. He shuts down completely. He actually tries to wedge himself, even though his car seat won't let him move to it, but he tries to wedge himself between the headrest of the front passenger seat and the door jamb. And he is shut down the entire time, won't respond to his name, won't take a treat, petting, anything. His nervous system, it cannot get past it. And those are things that anxiety for some dogs really look like, right? Different seats, different spots, extra medication. His nervous system, I can't find any way for him to adapt to it. So I think the hard part with anxious dogs is that it can appear a lot of times like your dog is misbehaving. That an anxious dog is not a dog who has forgotten what you've taught them. It's not spite. and it's not your dog trying to make your life harder. When a dog is far above the threshold of their nervous system, they're in a state that none of that is even accessible to them a lot of the time. You cannot train your way out of anxiety any more than you can tell someone who's having a panic attack to just calm down. That's just not how the nervous system works, whether it's human or it's canine. And it's exhausting for him. And it's exhausting for me sometimes. When I first signed up for my dog training certification, I was going to do some training with Rufus for one of the videos I had to submit, and I set up the tripod and I let it sit for days so he would be desensitized to it. And the minute I put a phone in it and tried to do some recording, he wouldn't even take a treat from me. Couldn't even do the most basic sit, which he can do absolutely fine. But this is what severe anxiety looks like. So if you have had or do have a dog, or you've seen dogs like this, this might sound like something you've done, but for me, as soon as I realized it, my first thought was, what did I do? What did I do to this poor dog to make this happen? Was it the rescue situation? Was it me? I struggled with it a ton, and I still do sometimes. And I started doing as much research as I could to try to find answers, like you do when you just can't find any peace from not knowing. I read about neutering early. There's a school of thought, and it's not fully backed by science, but it's not dismissed either, that neutering before the age of a year could contribute to anxiety in some cases. But I have neutered every single dog I have ever rescued, if it didn't come to me neutered, by around 6 months old. We did it in shelters. It's a less invasive process when they're younger, et cetera, et cetera. Barney, who you'll hear about at some point, I did him at 6 months. He was absolutely fine. Never thought twice about it. And now I'm wondering if, because I made that choice, if this is what happened for him. I looked at the hospitalization stay, right? He only stayed a couple hours at my vet, but was that it? Betty went and she stayed overnight and she came back fine. So, it's probably not that. But I drive myself crazy sometimes. I want to know why. Because I want to make sure I didn't do it to him. I'm sure that there were things in the beginning that I might have done that might have intensified it sometimes. But in my heart of hearts and in my rational brain, I know I didn't create this in him. I didn't cause his nervous system to be wired this way. And whether it's you or whether it's me, driving ourselves crazy to find an answer doesn't help. And it definitely doesn't help our dogs. What helps is deciding what you're going to focus on, what you can actually do from right here. So we took the medication route. And I know there's a lot of people that don't even recognize that this is an option. So Rufus is on Prozac. And I used to be a person that when any of the rescue dogs I had, I shouldn't say that, the one rescue dog I had who came to me on Prozac, my first goal was to get her off of that. My Gigi girl came to me. I weaned her off and she did fine. But it was actually a bulldog before Betty, this bulldog I had named Bella, who first started shifting my thinking about it. She came to me around 6 months with behaviors I hadn't seen before, and a really good behaviorist helped me understand what I was looking at. And slowly I really started to understand that for some dogs, medication isn't a crutch. It is an actual lifeline, just like it is for people. And Rufus has confirmed everything I learned with Bella. I would not expect a person to white knuckle their way through that level of anxiety without support. And I don't know why we expect dogs to do it. Watching, and I'm not saying medication is right for everyone. I just want to make sure everybody knows it's an option. And your vet is the one that you want to go to see if it is. If you have an anxious dog, it's worth a conversation. Because watching Rufus navigate the world in a constant state of stress before we started it, it is not the quality of life I want for him, and I don't want it for any dog. Now, the medication doesn't fully fix it, but it takes the edge off where I think he actually enjoys life. There's a bark. And I'm not fully satisfied with where we're at. I'm definitely looking into some other options. Prozac isn't the only option. We're not done figuring out. I'm hoping we can do a little bit better for him. Not too long ago, the beginning of the year, we moved a new house, a new neighborhood, a new fenced-in yard, new rooms, new everything, right? And for Rufus, this was challenging. Everything was different. Everything was changed. More to notice, more to react to, more stimulation hitting his already overloaded nervous system every single day. And his barking increased. I mean, someone could be across the street, which is like a 4-lane road. It's not 4 lanes, but it has a bike lane and it has a middle turning lane. So I get that because it's like 3 lanes, and he can hear it long before he can see it. And barking for me, I'll be honest, barking is one of those things, it's really hard for me. I mean, I love dogs 100% unconditionally, but excessive barking and excessive licking, those two sounds are that push me. The barking, by far the biggest one. There we go. And I'm telling you this because, hi Rufus, even when we know what's going on with our dogs, it doesn't mean we're immune to it, right? Nobody is. A few weeks ago, it was early morning, the windows were open, the sunlight was coming in, and it was already Rufus's 3rd barking episode in like 15 minutes. I was on my 2nd coffee and I lost it. I yelled at him. Not as a correction, but I just yelled. Like it hit, my nervous system hit its threshold. And I did all the things, everything I tell myself not to do, everything I know that doesn't help, everything that adds my dysregulated energy to his dysregulated energy. And poor Rufus just ran into the other room. And as he looked at me when I followed him, I know now he's not looking at me with guilt, right? It's not that he knows what he did, but with appeasement, right? With a nervous system that was already overwhelmed, now receiving an overwhelming new wave of intensity from the one person that he depends on. And I sat down and I cried. I was so mad at myself because I knew better and I still couldn't do it. And I share all this with you because I want you to know if this can happen to me after everything I've learned with 30 plus years of experience with dogs, being in dog training certification, after all the years, all the dogs, if it can still happen to me, it can happen to anyone. And it doesn't make you a bad owner. It makes you a person with a nervous system living with another being who also has a nervous system. And sometimes those two things are going to collide. And what really matters is what you do after you get up off the floor, right? Rufus wasn't barking to ruin my morning. Rufus wasn't barking because he knows I hate it. He wasn't barking because he was being naughty. He was barking because his nervous system was fully lit up, right? He's got to move a new visual landscape. It still affects him, as you just heard, from a world that keeps presenting him with things that he just doesn't always know how to process. He doesn't choose to be difficult. He was responding to what's happening inside of him. And every single day I'm working on it with him and with myself. Just because I know it doesn't always make it easy, right? Knowledge doesn't make you immune to the hard moments. You can know exactly why your dog is doing something, understand it completely, and still find it genuinely difficult to live with. And we need to make that okay. We need to be honest. This is real life with real dogs. Rufus, I think we'll get there, I hope, with his anxiety, right? I work on adjusting the environment, managing his exposure. Then I'm going to work on maybe trying some different meds. and it's slow, and some days are better than other days, but he is loved completely, imperfectly, on the good days, on the hard days. So if you have a dog that's hard right now, anxious, reactive, difficult in ways you didn't expect, especially if you got a rescue out of a shelter, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your dog. Every single dog is different. Every single one brings something you might not have seen before. And a lot of them are going to stretch you in ways you didn't even know. But maybe you needed to be stretched. I think that, there's been so much more light shed on the anxiety that dogs carry, and I think it's just such an important piece that we all acknowledge. Loving our dogs is the easy part. Living with them, especially when they are hard, that's where it gets real. And understanding them, it does make a big difference. It doesn't stop you from reacting, but when you're actively wanting to learn how to be different around them, it makes a big difference. And that's all I'm trying to share with you, in the hopes that it makes everything a little bit easier. So if you have an anxious dog, if you have a dog that makes you want to tear your hair out sometimes, or a lot of the time, you are not alone in this. I promise you. So that's today's episode. Please tell your dog I said hi, and I'll see you in the next one.